What if the very thing that you have been calling just a hobby was actually one of the truest ways that you could reflect the image of God? What if creativity wasn't extra, but essential? Hey, friends, welcome to Field Notes from the Gravel Road. I am Michelle Hill, and each Saturday I come to you here from Porchside for a quiet moment at the intersection of faith and creativity and becoming. This isn't a tutorial. It's not a productivity hack, not a productive. It's going to be one of those days, friends. A moment to realign, to remember, and to return. We are in week 3 of a series shaped by the Grace of the Gravel Road Manifesto, a collection of truths that define what we believe about creativity. And today's truth is foundational, even if it is often gets buried under comparison or pressure or just plain busyness. And that is, creative God is to carry the capacity to create. You don't have to be a professional artist. You just have to be willing to pay attention and to respond. Creativity is for every single one of us. Before I ever called myself creative, I was already making things, tiny notebooks for my stuffed animals. My sister and I would spend hours making school supplies like small desks and pencils and notebooks. By the time that we actually got around to playing school, to sending our stuffed teddy bears to class, we were already through with the fun part and didn't want to do it anymore. Another thing that I would do is create overhead views of street intersections, always in the country, with crayons or colored pencils. I have no idea why I was fascinated with that. But no one told me I was creative. I didn't ask if it was any good. I didn't need to count. I didn't need it to count. It was just how I moved through the world. Most of us have stories like that, not gallery worthy, not even particularly skillful, but instinctive, joyful, whole. And then somewhere along the way, we learned to hesitate. We got the message that creativity had to be impressive or productive or professional in order for it to matter. But I want to say clearly to you today, that is not the truth. The truth is older than any degree or algorithm. It's in your brain. It's in your image. Genesis 1 says we are made in the likeness, just poetic language. It is literally who you are. While theologians might differ on exactly what that means, to be made in the image of God, one thing is clear for us here today: God creates. And as image bearers, we reflect that nature, not only in what we make, but in how we respond, how we notice and tend and build. It means that you were never meant to live only as a consumer of beauty, but as the participant in it. To be made in the image of a creator means that shaping and tending and imagining and responding are part of how you were designed to move through the world. That doesn't mean everyone will pick a paintbrush, but it does mean that we all have a role to play in how beauty and meaning and renewal take shape in our lives and our community. When we dismiss our creativity as not good enough, we risk dismissing a part of ourselves that God has already declared very good. When we recover it, especially in ordinary ways, we come back into alignment with our design. Creativity becomes not a performance or a side project, but a way of saying, I am still here, I am still listening, I am still willing to participate in the story that God is telling. Let's go back to the beginning for a moment. Genesis 1:26-27 says, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness. So God made humans in his image, male and female, creative reflections of a creative God. Matthew value, but the kind that shapes how day to day, responding to beauty, bearing witness to truth, co-creating with God. And in Exodus 35:35, we read that God filled his people with skill, not just for worship, but for craftsmanship, artistry, and making beauty. These are not just fringe stories. That creativity is not a side hobby. It is a way. Let me lovingly push back on that thought. You do not have to be an artist. You just have to be a responder. To create is to respond to light, to longing, to pain, to hope, to the spirit. Let me reframe the idea of artist for a moment. If you make art, and there are no rules about what art is or isn't, if you use your creativity and make something, that is art. And if you make art, you are an artist. Now, if you trade art for money, then you're a professional artist. And then we can perhaps apply comparative judgments, subjective, questionable art gets sold for money. So if you're going to be judgmental, you can remark on someone's skill or not consider yourself a skilled artist. But we are all artists. Plus, creativity is not limited to what we typically call, air quote, art. It's in how you solve your words. It's in your parenting, in your journaling, in your playlist making. What if the issue is not whether or not you're creative, but whether you've been given permission to see it that way? Maybe your creativity feels rusty. Maybe you've set it aside for, quote, more important things. Or maybe you've just forgotten how it used to feel. Well, here's the good news. You don't have to earn your creativity. You just have to return to it. It's not gone. You have carried it all along. You are light in this world. You are image bearer. You are filled with sacred capacity. You are filled with the unlimited creative power of an omnipotent God. And when you create from love and presence and attention, you reflect the one who made you. And understand this also. Reclaiming your creativity isn't about personal healing, although it can be. It's about joining God in a world that desperately needs light bringers, image bearers, and creative response. We live in a culture where division and distraction and despair often set the tone, where speed is rewarded and silence is rare. But creative people, awake, rooted, and attuned, carry something different. When you honor and live in relationship with your creativity, you are not just helping yourself feel whole. You are offering the world something true, a word of hope, a meal of comfort, a thread of connection, a simple moment of beauty that reminds someone that they are not alone. Or maybe like Amos and Isaiah and Micah, your heart is tuned to justice and your creativity reflects that. We desperately need that. That is not a small thing. That is sacred. So don't wait until it feels big. Sometimes saying yes to your creativity looks like picking up a pencil or humming a tune or planting something in the ground just to see it grow. Small acts can carry sacred weight. You don't have to know where they're going. You just have to begin. So as you move into your week this week, here are a few questions to take with you. Where did creativity show up in your childhood before you had a name for it? What forms of creativity have you dismissed because they didn't look like what the world defines as artistic? What if your way of making is part of the way that you are supposed to reflect God in this world? And what would it look like to reclaim your creativity? Not to prove anything, but simply to be more fully yourself and more fully reflect God in the world. You don't have to be talented. You don't have to be consistent. And you don't have to be finished. You just have to say yes. Creativity is not a specialty. It is your birthright. It is who you are. And I'm so glad you're here thinking about reclaiming it with me. I'll be right here again next Saturday on my patio steps. If you would like to come on back, I would love to have you. Until then, wherever your journey takes you this week, may grace meet you there.